Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor and his friends give you sports betting tips. I am your host, Professor Sides. It's my actual job title and last name, which is part of the reason why the mathematical model that I have built to predict various sports outcomes is affectionately known as Sideline. You'll hear more about the model during the course of this episode, set to cover the 6 best college basketball games and one off-the-wall game scheduled to be played on Monday, February 20th, 2023. In addition here, check out the webpage on the banner. It's www.pickswiththeprofessor.com/new for some explanations and community rules. See the Google Sheet linked in the show description for Sideline's projection on every single game. Remember, this show covers picks on the best games for the best picks on all games. Sign up on Patreon or Black Book Sports. There are different packages and price ranges based on your needs. Remember, the sports are unpredictable, so the discussion on this show is projecting a typical game and not trying to forecast it to a T, as that would be a foolish and impossible goal. We take a long-term view around here. Don't get distracted when a team either can't hit or can't miss from three, as those things balance out in the long run, but are hard to foresee before they happen. In other words, please understand that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as I'd like to say we'll be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Jake, we started off last week really strong. Closed last week. I closed very poorly. Hopefully this week we'd have more up and down. I do think it's important to mention, that what I just say there at the start, right? Good and bad variance, and we don't try to forecast to a T. I think it's important for people to continue to remember that when we're modeling. Jake, I think you said it really well. You used the example of thinking about a 7-game series in the NBA, right? One game, team's going to win by 30. The next, they're going to lose by 20. On average, they won by 5. That's what we're kind of modeling, because it's impossible to try to predict exactly what a team will do from 3. We're just kind of saying on average is what they should do. We always see some weird results. It's more fun when they go our way than no, but we're kind of talking about the long-term, trying to project that in the long run, it balances out where we say we're closer on average than not, which gets a slow, steady increase in the bankroll. Unfortunately, I can't predict when TCU is going to drop 100. I guess is long story short right there, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you did, I would be asking him to see Biff's Sportsbook or whatever that is, the Gray's Almanac. That's
what I was thinking. Yeah, the only way to predict that is like have a time machine. Absolutely, great reference. Anytime you can reference Back to the Future.
Great movie.
Great movie, absolutely. We do have an okay slate today. We got a lot of games to cover. Some bigger numbers, but I think a couple of bigger numbers that we can really take advantage of, a couple of totals to talk about. So a lot of fun here in today's episode. But before we get to it, some reminders. Please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you aren't yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free. And if you turn on notifications, you won't miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content that this channel provides. I've already mentioned the Patreon, but check it out if you haven't yet. Lots of great benefits you found over there above and beyond what we do here. $3 per month gets you the play of the day. For another $2 a month, you get all the little picks and access to the Discord chat, which is the best place to get questions answered about these or other games or sports from me, from Jake, from Cousin Jared, or other sports gamblers, always offering opinions and different picks. It's a lot of fun over there. And then for $5 more a month, you get ad-free shows and media access to every recommended pick. Go to www.patreon.com/pickswiththeprofessor for more details. But even if you're not there, still thrilled to have you here. Jake, let's get to it. But as always, take what you like and leave the rest. We're going to start off with an early game here, 6 p.m. Eastern. So this is a 3 p.m. local start. UC San Diego and UC Davis. The spread in this game is 9. The model says 8.2. So the model does lean grabbing the points with UC San Diego. Sure, I don't know. I mean, this feels like a game that UC Davis wins, and it's going to be down to the wire with the fouls and the back door. And do they win by 7 or 12? I have no idea. It doesn't really feel like the most exciting side to take advantage of, but I do like this over 141.5. We've seen the average number of points in college basketball just skyrocketing here the last month or so. It's been a trend that just hasn't gone away. And we've been averaging actually more points than this per game over the last month across all of college basketball. So this total is set like it's going to be about an average game as of later, maybe slightly below average. But I think it's going to be a little bit higher than average. UC Davis, I've got as the 47th fastest team in the country. They're going to play with a pretty fast pace. UC San Diego going to try to slow it down, but thankfully for us, UC San Diego makes up for that by having a pretty bad defense, and so they're going to allow a lot of points. The model projects this at 145.5, so we've got a better likelihood of getting to the mid 140s. I think maybe even get up towards 150, especially you never know with those late fouls, that sort of thing. UC Davis should be able to score as many points as they want. And like I said, does that mean the back door's open? Who knows exactly how many UC San Diego gets. So the side is a little bit tougher to peg. But I just think 141.5, way too low. It's the early game, but it's not that early in the day. It's only, so it's not like it's one of those 11 a.m. noon tips for them or something. So I don't think it's going to really disrupt them. I think you've got one team, like I said, that can't play defense, one team that's going to play fast. I think you put that together, it's going to get a lot of points. Jake, what do you have for us now?
Yeah, look, I totally agree with the over. It's UC Davis, the better team. They should be able to control the pace. It should be played their pace. But like we pointed out, San Diego, terrible defense. But in conference play with conference games, UC Davis's defense has really gone down. So I think the offenses are going to be able to have a lot of quality possessions. The pace is going to improve. There's going to be a lot of turnovers in this game. Not great basketball, but I think it will lead to a lot of points. The side makes you real nervous with where it's at because UC Davis is not a great free throw shooting team, but San Diego is. So that could really easily flip a backdoor, get backdoored real easy on that, or flip it from a win to a loss real quick because UC Davis misses a couple free throws and then San Diego hits a three and all of a sudden it's an 8-point game instead of an 11 game and you're winning. So that the side makes me real nervous, but I think there'll be a ton of points in this game.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that both Sideline and the books have been underestimating UC Davis by about a couple points per game as of late, but UC San Diego by more than 5 points per game. So both these teams have been playing over, and I just don't see any reason why that stops here in this one. It should be a fairly up and down game. Again, not thinking maybe 170 like some of the other fun games, but plenty enough pace and lack of defense enough to get us again into the mid 140s or up towards 150. So we like the over in that one. 7 p.m. Eastern. Louisville at Duke. Louisville, welcome to the party with a nice home win against Clemson. Added them as a late ad Saturday for an A-grade play, getting a bunch of points and didn't even need them. I wasn't bold enough to claim money line on that one. If you were, congrats to you. But Louisville's been playing better lately, similar to Georgetown, another team that we faded often early that's had a little bit of a pulse as of late. They still are a very flawed team, but I think the numbers are still struggling to catch up with them. You saw that the other day where Louisville was just a little disrespected. Obviously here it's a much tougher task to play at Duke than Clemson. Duke played a really good game Saturday. I still just think this is too many points, though. I'm going to grab the 19.5 with Clemson. The model says about 19.5, but with the way Louisville's been playing, this feels like a game that they should lose by about 15. And so I think they can just hang around in the sense of they're not going to lose by 30. I just think 19.5 is way too many points. Like I said, I think Duke wins by 12, maybe 15, maybe 18, but 20 or more, obviously it's possible. But this Louisville team, again, has been playing reasonable as of late. And when you look at Duke, I don't really know what their calling card is at this point. I guess it's their defense, but their defense still, I've only got ranked 30th in college basketball. I've got their offense ranked first. This just isn't, I don't want to say your dad's Duke team, last year's Duke team, any other year's Duke team. It seems like it's just a weaker version. Old school Duke would destroy this Louisville team by 30. I just think this isn't that Duke team. Again, I think they're solid, but we've seen Louisville, again, play with a pulse. I think they can hang around, so I'm going to grab the 19.5. Total in this one is 138. Model says 138.2. Jake, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I'll lean the other way, but it's not anything I would play. I just think Duke at home with full strength, with getting Whitehead back, and it looked like he didn't miss a beat, is a very different team. And just because it's so different, I kind of want to stay away from a side with them because I don't know exactly what to make of them because I think there's only been 10, 12 games this year that they've had their full roster going.
If that. That's obviously one of the problems.
Yeah. But I love the under here. I think the under is very good. Neither team, great offense, nothing scary there, but Duke's defense is really good, especially at home. And they also counter Louisville very well. With the height they have, it makes it really hard. Lively is a game changer underneath with the way he's playing right now with blocking shots. Louisville's got problems with turnovers, and in a small gym like Duke has, they can really mess with the guards' heads. Roach is a good defender. Duke is just longer, leaner, more athletic than this Louisville team. And I think they'll keep the pace of play the way they want it to, which is a very slow game. Take their time on offense, find a big guy, and keep the score pretty well under this. I think it's like 137.
138.
138. Yeah, I think this will be much closer to like 130s kind of game.
You mentioned pace. Louisville plays at a pretty average pace, right around the middle of the pack with regards to the country. Duke, I've got down all the way to 271. So like you said, playing a pretty slow game. And we always talk about the team, the home team typically has a little bit of an edge with regards to pace, also the better team / the team that are they good enough to do what they want. And all three of those are checkmark Duke. So it should be more played at Duke's pace. Louisville, I don't really think they want to speed it up either. I don't think they really want to do anything. I think they want to just go out and play, and they had a great win, obviously, on Saturday. My hunch is their goal here is just to not get the doors blown off of them. So I don't know. I don't think their game plan is going to be run and gun. Maybe it is, but I don't really think we've seen a lot of something like that from Louisville to indicate that. And even if they wanted to do that, like you said, the tempo should lean Duke's way. So I'm going to grab the points for Louisville. Jake, you like the under. Which takes to the other 7 p.m. Eastern game we're going to cover here, Oklahoma State at West Virginia. An interesting battle of two teams that had a really disappointing Saturday. West Virginia losing at home. We grabbed the points with Tech, and West Virginia, I feel like, is kind of firmly on the bubble now. We talk about these bottom 4 teams in the Big 12 now all kind of battling, and it was Tech was the team that was going to be left out, and now Tech's right in the middle of all that. And, West Virginia really needs a home win. Oklahoma State had been playing a little bit better, now coming off of 2 straight losses. They got the beating that TCU delivered. We'll talk about TCU here later on in the show. I still think right now I like this Oklahoma State team more than West Virginia. I think that's just isolating the whole situation, ignoring location, ignoring points, everything. I think I like Oklahoma State a little bit better. The model says West Virginia is the slightly better team. That's partially because of Anderson being out. But even then, I still just don't like what I've seen from West Virginia as of late. Oklahoma State, I'm willing to give them a pass. They did play what seems to be a fully healthy TCU team on the road on Saturday. I'm willing to write that off. Before that, they played a Kansas team that, my goodness, we saw what they can do in the second half against Baylor. We'll talk about them again in the next game. I'm kind of willing to look the other way on that, whereas West Virginia at home losing to Tech. Again, Tech's been playing better, but that still is a loss you can't have. I kind of see this playing out a lot like that Tech game, where it should be just a tight contest. Tech ended up pulling it out. West Virginia could have easily pulled it out. It was a coin toss game, and getting the 6.5, 7 points, whatever it is we got with Tech was way too many. I kind of think the same thing. I think 5.5 is too many. It's a B grade play according to the model, which is it should only be West Virginia minus 3.8. I love grabbing 5.5. Model wants 5.5 at minus 110 before it's an A grade. This is 5.5 minus 115. So we're borderline A grade, also plus 6. Something in that ballpark would be a really strong play. I still think grabbing 5.5, though, is too good to pass up. You've got a top 10 defense at Oklahoma State, and that's the best unit on the court right here. So I like the Pokes to hang around, keep it interesting, just like Tech did on Saturday. Don't know who pulls it out, but getting 5.5, don't have to care. It should just be a tight game. Similar to our A-plus play the day here on Sunday with Cincinnati. Didn't have to care who won at the end when we got 3.5 points. Just said, hey, it's a tight ball game at the end. Just somebody win this thing and don't go to overtime. Total in this one is 143. The model says 140.5, but both of these teams have been pretty high scoring as of late, so it's not an under that I would be on. West Virginia has been a moderately over team. Oklahoma State's been a massive over team here in the last month. So I would not touch this under whatsoever. Even the model leans that direction. I just think we can't catch up to the pace that these two teams are playing at, going up and up and up, and the offense is playing pretty well. So not a total for me. Said I'm just going to grab the points. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this is too many points. I think West Virginia probably wins this game at home, especially coming off the loss, and Oklahoma State coming off the drumming they got where they just didn't show up. And the biggest problem Oklahoma State has is their offense has to have their defense be at a top level for them to score, because it bails out their offense so many times. So that just obviously didn't happen against TCU. West Virginia, the offense not anywhere near as good as TCU's. I don't think they're going to be able to take advantage of the weak spots that Oklahoma State's defense has at times, and I think that's really going to come back to bite them. I think this game stays really close, nip and tuck all the way through. because West Virginia struggles to put teams away, even, especially once they've been in the Big 12 play where they're everything's kind of dropping off. Most of that is because of the level of play. They're playing much better teams than they did all non-conference. But as things drop off, it makes the games a lot closer. And Oklahoma State's defense has been, for the most part, elite, except for a few games here or there. So I think West Virginia's really going to struggle to score, and it's going to be a very, very close game.
Yeah, it should be a really tight game. So we both love getting the points in that one. The aforementioned, both teams we're talking about here, Kansas and TCU, game of the night, 9 p.m. Eastern. TCU's a 2-point favorite. I'm going to grab the 2 with Kansas. Model says TCU on average by 0.8. There's so much to talk about in this game. I don't even know where to begin. First time these two teams played in Lawrence, TCU destroyed Kansas. TCU also had just one of those incredible shooting performances. You don't expect that to happen again. Kansas, what Kansas team is going to show up, right? If the team that shows up against the first half, against Baylor shows up, they're going to get run out of this game and they won't be able to come back. If the second half team shows up, they got a really good chance to win this game outright. TCU, I've long said, when fully healthy, I think might be the best team in the Big 12. Are they fully healthy? I still don't know. They got both those guys back Saturday. They jumped out. They put up 50 in the first half on 65% shooting. No way to predict that. Again, if I was to go out and predict it, that TCU would shoot 65% from the floor in the first half, you'd wonder what else I'm predicting, because that's such an out there prediction that, if you happen, like you said, if you predicted that with confidence, you're either crazy or you had the time machine. Best sports almanac, right? So they didn't really have to stress those guys a lot, which was good. It's a short turnaround now for two guys who are playing their first game back from injury, but at least it was home, and now they're home again. I don't really know. I am trusting the fact that even when I plug in a fully healthy TCU here, I've still got Kansas as the better team according to the model. I'm not sure if I believe that 100%, but what I saw in that second half against Baylor, it's hard to disagree with that. The biggest question is just what Kansas is going to show up. I was really concerned about which Kansas was showing up in general entering this weekend. I felt very confident in my beliefs about that fear at halftime against Baylor, and in the second half, they really showed us what they can do when fully healthy. My fear with taking Kansas here is this a little bit too much on the hype train after that Baylor win. Of course, you could go the opposite way with TCU. Are we a little bit too much on the hype train after that against Oklahoma State? Both teams just had incredible performances. Kansas in the second half, TCU in the first half, where then it was just a laugher at that point and nothing really mattered. Both teams coming off a great game. At least with Kansas, they were coming from home and not another location. So at least you've got that right. If this was Kansas playing at West Virginia on Saturday and then at TCU or something, that would have been a lot tougher of a situation. At least they're coming from home. I'm just going to say I've got Kansas the better team, so give me 2 points. It should be a really good game. Could easily be a game that's decided by 1 or 2 points. And so in a coin toss situation where I just don't know what's going to happen, give me the +2. Give me the money line on Kansas at plus odds. If it was the other way around, I'd be happy to take 2 points with TCU or plus odds on TCU. I'm just taking the plus odds because I don't know what's happening. Plus points or plus odds, I don't know what's happening in this game. Should be really good. Total 149.5. Model would say under. Model says 146. But as I just mentioned with Oklahoma State and West Virginia, both of these teams have been going over as of late. And that doesn't even consider the fact that TCU's still been going over without 2 of their better players that really key their offense. So you got 2 teams that have really been playing well. They're not bad defensively. I've got both of these in the top 20 of defense, but they've both just been playing so strong offensively. The pace is there. Both these teams are in the top 100 of pace. And so both these teams have been such over teams that even though the model says under, I would not want any part of the under in this one. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm just happy we know who the 2 most valuable players in college basketball are, and Lumpkin and Miles there. So now that conversation's out of the way, they just look completely
or Castleton because he goes out of Florida, all of a sudden they lose by like 30 or whatever it was.
Yeah, golly, that was ridiculous. But yeah, like Oklahoma State, that game was just unreal what TCU was doing in their first game back after missing, I think, 2 weeks. That just unreal. So it's going to be like, that's part of the reason I don't want to take the side, because this TCU team I think is the better team when they're all healthy and everybody's playing. But that's a quick turnaround to go from. I mean, at least they got the rest of the second half, I guess. But that's a high level and a quick turnaround. So I'm just very nervous about the side, because if TCU plays like they did.
And absolutely, I think that's what I was trying to say. There are some question marks there. It doesn't mean they won't be 100%. I don't really know. I'd feel if this was on Wednesday, I'd feel a whole lot better about being like, yeah, those guys are going to be fully ready to go. Monday's like, maybe, probably, question mark, not really sure, you know?
Yeah, and so I'm staying away from the side. I really like the over here. These teams play so fast. They've got good defenses, but the offenses are next level good. And TCU's defense feeds its offense with all the turnovers they force, and Kansas does the same thing. It's going to be wild to see which ones are winning out. I think this is going to be a very spurt-driven game. You'll see TCU going like a 10-2 run or something like that, and then Kansas will return with 12-4, and you'll just have these kind of runs with 3 ball starts going, and it's outrageous. I think Kansas will have a little bit of revenge on their mind for that drumming they took. And that offense, Kansas' offense is playing unreal right now. They've scored above 77 in 6 of the last 7 games and above 85 in 4 of those. That's a lot of points. And TCU just put up 100 with full strength. I think we're going to get closer to 150, 155 here, maybe even 160s. It wouldn't surprise me to see this game 90-80 or something like that, something in there. I just think it's going to rain points. And then it should be a tight game, so there'll be extra points at the end of the game with fouls and things. Both teams are good free throw shooting teams. Don't know what to do with the side, so I like taking the over because I want a tight game, fun to watch, fouls, give me more points.
Yeah, and the only thing, last thing to mention is you talked about those turnovers that TCU creates to generate offense. It's exactly what fueled them to that first victory. They caused a lot of turnovers, made Kansas very uncomfortable, along with, and then those turnovers forced easy buckets and some transition threes that TCU just couldn't miss from 3 in that first half and got them to that huge lead. That Kansas team that showed up against the first half of TCU was the same Kansas team that showed up in the first half against Baylor. Just didn't look like they could handle a good defense. Just didn't look like they could handle pressure. Just didn't look like they wanted anything. Just looked very lackadaisical. We saw basically the same performance. The difference was this time Kansas at the half wasn't down by as much. They were only down, I think, 13, 15, something like that, versus TCU was already in the 20s. Had a little bit more in them or whatever to just turn it around and really make Baylor uncomfortable. They couldn't do it the first time against TCU. Is that a little bit of maturity, a little bit of growth, a little bit of, as the season's gone along, a little more faith, a little better player? Who really knows? But they, it was kind of a mirror image. They couldn't do it against TCU that first game. Obviously now from the start, starting fresh, they know exactly what TCU is going to try to do. And are they able to turn it around? We don't know. They weren't able to, again, the first time. TCU really had their way with them. Now they're at home. I do think, though, this probably is a better Kansas team today than that first matchup. Again, just given what I saw, how they reacted to the similar situation down at the half against Baylor and TCU. So it should be a great contest. I don't know what's going to happen. Jake doesn't know what's going to happen. But because of that, I'm going to take the points. And then, Jake, you are sticking to the over. Also at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Chess match.
Yep.
I was going to say the chess match in that game between Dixon and Self will be something fun to watch. We figure out what they're going to do, how they're going to counter each other. That'll be just a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Also at 9 p.m. Eastern, if you've got 2 screens, this will be the other game on, but otherwise not projected to be as interesting. Maybe you're a fan of one of these 2 schools. Minnesota, Illinois. Minnesota, I guess the worst team in the Big Ten. Ohio State is knocking, but otherwise we'll say the bottom feeders of the Big Ten at an Illinois team. Who knows if Shannon's going to be back? Got some good lucky injury news taking Indiana, and then Shannon's announced out. The number jumps 3 points, and it doesn't matter. And that's gambling sometimes, right? You take a side and you get some good luck, and then Illinois still plays really well without him. Now, obviously, he still matters, but you at least did see that Illinois, again, does have a lot of depth. They are a very talented team. If he isn't playing, they should still handle Minnesota. If he is playing, they should still handle Minnesota. It shouldn't really matter. I'm going to lay the 15.5 with Illinois. It's an A-grade play. The model says this should be Illinois minus 19. It's just a massive mismatch here with how bad Minnesota is. I don't even have Minnesota in the top 200. I've got Illinois ranked right now at 24th. Again, Shannon, no Shannon. Not sure it matters a ton. This feels like about a 20-point victory. To me, this is about the line where that Duke game should be. These should probably be about flipped. I think they're just a little bit off in this case. I think that I'm not convinced that Minnesota's better than Louisville at this point. I think both teams are pretty rough. Illinois and Duke probably pretty common. I think it's pretty common setup. I don't quite know why the numbers are like they are. I like laying the big number here. Not a thing I like to do often, but in this case, I think 15.5 is not enough points. I think Illinois runs away with it. Total in this one, 134. Model says 133.7. They've been pretty spot on with these two totals. So I think it's pretty well set in that area. Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, I absolutely love Illinois here, even with Shannon out. If he stays out, if he come back, I like it even more. I think that's the difference in the game in the two spreads is Shannon's out on one, like they're losing a key player on one, and Duke is at full stream. Otherwise, I think those lines are the same. Minnesota, not enough offensive talent to keep up here. They turn the ball over way too much. They just forget to rebound on both sides of the floor, and they also happen to be the worst free throw shooting team in the nation. Nothing is going well for their Illinois. Not much better for the free throw line, but they do clean up their misses. Coleman Hawkins and Epps are very good at finding their open teammates, and which they're going to be running wide open here with Minnesota's defense. Minnesota likes to play through big guys. Illinois can counter that with Dodgy and Coleman Hawkins, and Mayer's big too. Speaking of Mayer, he's absolutely killing it. Last 6 games, averaging about 18 a game. Really showed up. I think he's starting to be a little more comfortable in this Illinois offense and shooting a lot better, shooting closer to the percentages he was at Baylor. That's only going to go up. His points are only going to go up as he gets more comfortable with that. Minnesota not won a game in over a month, and they've been blown out more times than they've even kept it anywhere near close. Illinois beat them by 18 on the road. I think home court, switching the home courts and Shannon being in or out will make up the difference in that. So I think we're 18-20 should be a fairly easy cover.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I've got Minnesota almost outside of the top 300 in offense across college basketball. It's not good. It's not good. To the late slot here, 10 p.m. Eastern, Cal State Fullerton at UC Santa Barbara. I'm going to lay it with Santa Barbara. This is a typo on screen here. We're going to lay like a 5.5, not 6. Sideline says 6.1. For this one, it's not my most favorite play of the day. It's a C grade according to the model. Fullerton's been a team we've been backing as of late, and they've been pretty good to us. Santa Barbara's been a team we've been fading as of late. That's been up and down. Santa Barbara's a really good team. The question is just, are they getting a little bit too much respect? In general, that's been the way things have gone. They've just been getting a little bit too much respect as of late. I'm going to lay it with Santa Barbara here, though, simply because I've got Santa Barbara as the better team by a non-trivial amount. Plus, they're at home. And so I really think they're ahead late in this game. And if they don't pull away, we got a good chance to get their own fouls. And that's really, it's really, this one's about the number more than anything else. It's not so much that I think Santa Barbara's going to win this by 10. It's just, if they're the better team at home, we got a lot of ways that fouls can get us there at the end. So I'm going to back the home team here, lay the 5.5. Total in this one is 130. The model says 132, but this game will be played at a snail's pace. I've got both of these teams outside the top 300 in pace, and there's only 363 teams, I believe. So we're in the bottom 60s of pace for both of these teams. Nobody's going to try to speed this game up, so it should be played extremely slow. Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, this is one I'm going to have to disagree. I think the pace, the number is just too big for Barber to cover here. They're not playing well. They've lost 3 of their last 5. They won the last matchup on the road by 8, but I think this was a different Fullerton team than you're seeing now. Fullerton is playing some of their best basketball, and it's really been turned around by their defense. Their defense has really stepped up. Offensively, they still leave a lot to be desired, so that's kind of nervous there, especially with their weakness at the free throw line. But I think the defense will be enough to keep them in the game. I don't think they win. I think Barber still wins, but I think it's going to be like a 2 or 3 point win. So I'm going to take with that 5.5, 6, wherever you're seeing it. I like getting the plus points there.
And you make a good point there that when you look back at the last month, it's very clear the correlation between how these teams have played relative to the model and the spread's expectations and the totals align perfectly. As you mentioned, the Fullerton games have been going under more so as of late. They've been playing really well. That's been fueled by their really good defense. The Santa Barbara games, they haven't been playing as well, and they've been going over. It's been fueled by weaker defense. It's really all about the defenses in this game. Fullerton's defense has been stepping up, and that's been making them play a little bit better. Santa Barbara's defense has been letting them down, and that's been costing them. The counterpoint to that is simply that Cal State Fullerton on the road, their offense is outside the top 200 according to my metrics. Maybe not the offense to challenge Santa Barbara's defense, but as you mentioned, it should be a really slow game. It should be around this number, of course. It's a fairly well set line. I think you've got kind of two angles to look at it there. Jake, you kind of brought up the pace, making it harder to cover. I'm kind of bringing up the free throw angle. So whichever one of those kind of resonates with you maybe gives you a direction on this. The total, again, the model would lean over. One team's been playing over, one team's been playing under. Like I said, it's all about the defenses. If you think that Santa Barbara's defense is going to look better now today because they're playing such a weak offense in Cal State Fullerton, who's on the road, then I think you have to go under, even though it's a really low number, just because the pace is so low. If you don't buy into that and you think that Santa Barbara's defense has been struggling and Fullerton's going to be able to score some points, and you think maybe a tight contest, maybe you go over. So there's a couple different ways to look at the total there based on how you think about these defenses, which I think is the story of this game, is which defense does Fullerton's defense continue to play hot, or does Santa Barbara's defense play more like the unit that they were at the start of the season? And that's the question and the thing we have to ask ourselves as these games is this recent thing that's happening, how predictive is that? Sometimes the answer is a lot. Sometimes it's not a lot. You got to look at it and try to come up with your own conclusion there. Which takes us to overtime. We're going to stick in the Big West Conference. Hawaii at Cal State Bakersfield. The spread in this game is about 6.5. The model says about 6, so it's pretty well priced here. If you are playing the side, I would probably lean getting the points with the home team in Bakersfield. They've been playing really well lately, but it's not a very strong play. Instead, Jake, you like the over in this game. It's 122.5. This is a low total, and another game that's going to be played at a snail's pace. Both of these teams also outside of the top 300 in pace. Hawaii, pretty good defense. Bakersfield, not so much on the defense, though. Jake, tell us more about why you. I feel like I could give your answers to why this is going to go over. I feel like it's like one sentence. I'm curious. Can you get it to one sentence for me?
Yeah, I just think the number is 122 is way too low. I think the free throws, with with Hawaii able to make them and the way Cal Bakersfield fouls, they're one of the higher fouling teams in the nation. I think that's going to drive this up like the 125 and 130 range. That's about where I see this game going. Hawaii's got 5 guys that average double digits. They're a very balanced team. I think they'll be able to score. Will it be enough to cover? I don't know. I lean a little bit that way, but I don't like it. So I won't have any money on it. But if you put a gun to my head, I'll be like, maybe Hawaii. But I just think that there's going to be a little more points in this with the way the free throw line is going to work out and just how bad Cal Bakersfield defense can be. I think Hawaii will pick a part of it a few times, and we'll end up with like a 65-60 game or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that the too long don't read version of why the over in this is, it's not hard to get to 123 points in college basketball. It's such a low number. It's not going to be easy for these teams. It's just, it won't be extremely difficult, right? You know, some teams would be very easy. They could get to this number in their sleep. These two teams aren't going to be able to get to that number in their sleep, but it's so low. It's a very attainable number. As opposed to, you know, if this is up in the, you know, if this was total was set at 126, 127, something like that, you'd say, okay, that's maybe attainable, but these two teams may not can get there. But down at the bottom part of the 120s, it's a much more attainable number. It's also one that no matter how cold these teams go, for short stretches, you're always kind of in this because it won't take very many hot stretches to get you back on pace because you have such a low bar to get to. So thankfully we have a low bar, 2 slow teams, a little bit of a contrarian play here going over in such a small number. But Jake, that's one of your favorite plays of the day. All right. That's all the games we're going to cover today. Any parting words for the viewer?
No, I just can't wait to get this Monday going, get this new week of basketball. We got four games left for the regular season for most teams. So it should be
something like that. I think 2 for the teams that start their conference tournaments next week. We have one more week of basketball of no conference tournaments our show 1 week from today, I think we will be covering, or we may pass on it, but we could be talking about a conference tournament, some of the small schools. So we're getting into the fun part of the year. Conference tournaments are a lot of fun, a lot of ways to make money off them. So looking forward to getting to that next week. That's all we got then. Thanks for tuning in this episode of Picks with the Professor. Don't forget to subscribe so you can enjoy the sports betting content provided on this channel. Dropped right to your feed. I'll be back again tomorrow with more college basketball betting tips. And until then, as always, best of luck. And remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.